This episode of Cult House is brought to you by Indie Comics Creator Con. Featuring over 150 comic book creators, 15 publishers, and 10 panels, Indie Comics Creator Con takes place Saturday, March 15th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at Southern Connecticut State University in New Haven, Connecticut. Among the guests announced so far are Heather Antos, Jim Lawson, and Mike Martz. Tickets are $8 regular or $5 if you're a student or military attendee. To get yours, visit the referral link in this episode's description or go to www.indiecomicscreatorcon.com/ref/culthouse.
The sky's not blue.
Welcome back to the Cult House Podcast. I'm your host, the Scholar of Spite and the Saturday Night Delight, Roger Riddell. Joining me today, he is the guitarist for South Carolina death metal legends Nile, Karl Sanders. How are you doing today, Karl?
Doing great, Roger. How are you?
Pretty good. We were just talking before the chat about how cold it is, up here where I'm at in Chicago, which it's a fun contrast to kind of just to the overall Egyptian theme of Nile, because I don't think it ever gets cold in Egypt.
Probably not like it does in Chicago. Like the cold that is cold in Chicago, there's a certain bite to it that goes right through your clothes. Like, I've been like touring winter, like in Finland, where it was 30 below, right? And that's fucking cold. But Chicago, with the lake wind blowing and biting through your clothes, that feels colder than Finland to me.
Oh yeah, it's the wind that gets you. I've found, over my years living here that leather jackets really help out a lot. Like it just helps to block that wind from getting through.
Yep. Got a
Yeah.
big thick one that only comes out in winter.
So yeah, I guess right off the bat, let's talk about the one thing that no one ever asks you about. Why Egypt?
Yes, no one has ever asked me that before, so I might have to struggle to find an answer. Why not Egypt, right? If you're called Nile, well, why not? Why not?
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like when I was anytime that I've ever, listened to an interview with you or read an interview with you where that question's come up, that's kind of like the thing that I think, like, why wouldn't you want to theme something after Egypt? Like, it's cool as shit. There's mummies, there's pyramids, there's all of the mythology.
It's as though someone had a whole friggin' 1,000 years long civilization perfect for exploiting for death metal songs. Somebody already did all the hard work. So
Yeah.
who am I
One
to
of my
say no
challenges
to
with
all that?
Egypt is that it's, as far as like the ancient mythologies go, it's always been one of the harder to access ones for me. But I think part of that is because back when I was in college, like this is the version of the Book of the Dead that I
Right?
bought,
Hmm.
and it's not particularly reader friendly.
It is not reader friendly. It is reader unfriendly. Uh, it's even unfriendly to try and write songs with. So I got several other copies of the Book of the Dead that are much more reader friendly.
Yeah, like I've always wondered if there's like a version. So a few years ago, for example, Neil Gaiman put out like a Norse mythology book where he basically took the Prose Edda and um, worked it into a much more coherent, easier to follow narrative
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
um, it just made it all it was much more reader friendly than what this version of the Book of the Dead is. And I've always kind of wondered if there's a if someone's done that with the Book of the Dead where it's just like, just laid out more easily.
Well, it's still got basically the same layout. There's other versions that are easier on the eyes, but that one that hurts to look at that
Yeah.
that version because I got it. That was the first one I got too, and I was like, oh man. Um, Mr. Gaiman is an incredibly talented writer. So if he tackled Norse mythology, I got to see this. I got to
Yeah.
go look it up, and I want to read this.
This is his Norse mythology book if you're ever
Nice.
curious and looking for it on a shelf. But yeah, that copy of the Book of the Dead was actually given to me in college by a girl that I knew who was also the person who originally got me into Nile.
Hmm.
And this would have been
Wow.
around the time that like Ithy came out.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, and that summer, I guess that was '07. So I got to catch you all on the Ozfest that year, which was it was a lot of fun because uh the song title's escaping me now, but it might have been the title track. The thing at the end or near the end where there's the lyric anoint my phallus with the blood of the fallen, and there's
Oh
just a
my
bunch of people
God.
screaming that.
I was just in an interview where we were talking about song lyrics, and they said, "What's your favorite song lyric?" Right, and that's the one I said for exactly that reason because when people sing along with it, there's just something over the top and metal about it. When we all go anoint my phallus together, like, and people of all genders are saying it, not just dudes, right? It's an awesome moment to partake in for the bonding that happens between everybody. I love it. Yeah, anoint my phallus. It's great.
Yeah, just the over the top nature of lyrics like that. And then that album also had a song with the title Papyrus containing the spell to preserve its possessor against attacks from he who is in the water. Like that level of over the top just kind of drew me in because as much as you take the subject matter seriously, there's also like a level of fun in
Yeah,
approaching things like that. And it's like you're not taking it so seriously that you're not having fun with it.
yeah. It would be very easy to get caught up, uh, but nah, we're not that kind of band. There's a lot of humor in Nile Records, and that's the way I want to keep it. Right? There's got to be elements of fun in it, or it's just a pretentious drudgery without some fun. Like even the most serious horror flick, gore flick that you can find has elements of humor in it. So that was a lesson, I think, right? You can do something horrific, have fun with it.
Yeah, like horror movies always have that element of like gallows humor to them.
Hmm. Hmm.
With that, and then with the new album, the first single off of that was Chapter for Not Being Hung Upside Down on a Stake in the Underworld and Made to Eat Feces by the Four Apes. And like that kind of stuff just always draws me in because I'm just like, this is so ridiculous that I can't not like it.
I know, right? When I saw that song, it wasn't a song title yet, it was a chapter title um, in the extended version, Book of the Dead. Um, I was like, how is this not a metal song? This is a metal song. Somebody has to do this song. Somebody. And if I don't do it, somebody else will. So I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact too that like someone in ancient Egypt wrote these things down just totally seriously. Like this is just totally practical information for them at the time.
Right? I think that, and then I go, well, wait a minute. what if they were just dudes just like us, right? What if they were just like us? And to them, this was their version of having a ridiculous song title.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like a civilization like thousands of years from now discovering like Howard the Duck and trying to decipher that.
Right? Yeah, Howard the Duck. I'm amazed that Howard the Duck. Man, amazing. Wow.
Yeah, do you feel like in a lot of instances though, the fun ends up being kind of a dirty word in death metal though?
It does. Uh, Brad Paris, who's no longer with us, um, he's such a fun guy, genuine, warm kind of person, but he's always having fun. Like the fun never stops. It's nonstop, unless he drinks too much brown liquor. Then he turns into someone on himself. But otherwise, this dude is always having fun. Like we could be on stage with Nile playing the most intricate, fucking hard thing we got to concentrate on, and he'll be over there clowning, nailing it, but making some kind of fun out of it. And he did so much of this over the 8 years that he was in the band. George actually called a band meeting and said, "Guys, we're having too much fun. This is way too much fun. We got to pull it back a bit." Yeah.
Uh,
But life with Brad, uh, playing music with Brad, it was always fun. He was so talented that he could play his part and be nailing it while also making fun of and clowning on the other bandmates. Like during the sarcophagus guitar solo, right? When you stand next to someone for 8 years and you've seen them play the solo, I don't know how many hundreds of times, right? He could mimic every idiosyncratic thing about how I was playing it or whatever. He would mock what I was doing while he was nailing his part. Dude, that is another level of clownery, expertise, and godliness, right? It would be one thing if he stopped doing his part to make fun of my part, right? And when I say make fun of, he was just making fun of it. It wasn't malicious. He kept us all in stitches. But yeah, that's another level of musical capability to still do your thing while, you know, imitating the other guy's fucking thing in real time on a whim, right? So, yeah, fun. I don't know
yeah.
what point we were making, but yeah, metal, it has fun elements.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the thing where I think the older that I get, the less that I've like, taken into account. But like when I was younger, it felt like there was a lot more of a need within metal to just do like a lot of posturing. And then it's just like, what is the point of any of this posturing all the
It
time?
becomes stupid. Like after
Yeah.
you've seen people posture and pose, it's tiresome, right? To see yet another dude posing and striking the poses, not caring about the content. If you're delivering the content, then whatever pose you might be in is secondary, right? But there's lots of people who get that flipped around and they strike the pose but don't deliver the content. And that is clownery. That I don't like to fucking see. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I remember once in my Senojutsu class, uh, I got yelled at, uh, and I thought undeservedly so. He said, "Son, you're posing. You're not actually fighting. you're posing as a fighter. And I went, the fuck does he mean? If I hit my training partner as hard as I could hit him, well, it would be the end of, class that day. So I am pulling back just because you don't want to abuse your partner. But I was still trying to keep correct form, right? So I understood it from that angle, right? But from his angle, it was about, well, you've got to do the fucking thing. And you've got to actually do it, but don't do it just to look like you're doing it. There's a difference there. It's a subtle difference, but it matters, right? So that was an early lesson. If you're going to do it for real. Even if you're not going to murder the other person, you still got to do the fucking thing.
Yeah. I mean that kind of brings me to another thing that I wanted to ask you about, because I had a friend who, when I told him that I was going to be interviewing you, he was like, "You got to ask him about this video on YouTube where he, kind of like gets in between this confrontation, between an activist and I think it was the singer from Belphegor."
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing that stuck out to me when I was watching that video is that you don't just like immediately like step in, even though you know martial arts, you're not stepping in and just like initiating a physical confrontation. There's like a layer of what I think some people refer to as like verbal judo, where you're like, this isn't going to happen. Like, this is not happening today. And you're just stating it as like a matter of point,
Mm-hmm.
to make it clear that this person doesn't want to be pursuing, this course of action any further, which I think is interesting. Like, because people, when I think when a lot of people think about like martial artists and like being badass and whatnot, they think of just like initiating a physical confrontation. But like most of the people who are the toughest, who can like probably mess you up the worst, aren't going to be outwardly trying to fight. Like no one that knows how to fight is actually looking for a fight all the time.
Well said, sir. Um, in that circumstance, the whole point of what those guys were trying to accomplish was to provoke Helmet into a reaction on camera so that he could be arrested and have to go to jail and not be able to play the shows because they were protesting Belphegor's anti-Christian lyrics, right? So the easiest way to short circuit the whole tour was to provoke him on camera into a fight. So that's the gist of it, right? The point of it wasn't to have a fight or whoever was going to win the fight. The point was just to push him hard enough. And dude, when someone spits in your fucking face, that's a provocation on an elemental level. You will react whether you want to or not. If someone spits in your face,
Yeah, you just immediately see red. Yeah.
you see red, and you will. The fact that he was able to control his immediate urge to murder this motherfucker speaks volumes about his self-control. First, my part in that, I standing there, and when I watch the video, I see myself going, what am I seeing here? Where is this going? And what am I going to have to do? Somebody's going to have to do something, right? Because how long, how many times is Helmet going to be able to be provoked before he reaches a point where he's just has to, right? How many times? Anybody put in that situation sooner or later is going to go, you know what? Fuck you. It's on. Anybody. So at some point, someone was going to have to fucking help the dude. Or else you know, he's going to jail, tour fucks up, we all go home. Um, so all I was trying to do was not let a confrontation take place while not engaging in a way that would get myself in trouble because it's the whole point of it. Fucking camera's rolling. You know, they brought their camera guy and this bear of a fucking dude, like 300-pound dude, 6 foot something. He's a big dude. It's like a fucking bear, right? Um, but that's what had to be done, right? Just step in, make sure it doesn't progress in the time it takes for us to go from baggage claim up to the van to drive the fuck away. Yeah. That they would resort to a tactic like this. Just think about that. We're going to get you to fuck up your show by provoking you to fight on camera.
Yeah.
That's something you see on some bullshit reality TV show, right? So kudos to Helmet for staying cool. I don't know if I could have stayed cool if someone had spat in my face repeatedly. I don't have that level of calm.
Yeah.
Right? My fuse is pretty fucking fast, and a lot of times that doesn't help me. Um, and I end up doing shit I regret. But dude, hats off to Helmet. I think he's the real hero here because he could have taken that bait at any time, and no one would have blamed him.
Yeah, because like even without the spitting involved, like someone just being confrontational and getting within like this distance of your face is just like that kind of triggers a response too.
It does. It triggers it, and you'll react, even if you're trying not to react. It just that's how we're wired. We're males, and there's an evolved level of aggression that's been there for millions of years for a good reason. So, yeah, it's wired into us.
Yeah, to circle back to The Underworld Awaits Us All, I know I mentioned the lead single. Um, I've, listened to the album several times since it came out. I guess it's been like a month now, or 2 months.
Hmm.
So it's been on a steady repeat for me, and I think it's one of the like strongest like Nile albums that I've heard. Out of especially since I first got into you guys. Around like I mentioned earlier, 2007. Like the it surprises me on like several tracks with just like the different melodies and things like that. There's kind of an operatic thing that comes into play on both Overlords of the Black Earth and the closing track, Lament of the Destruction of Time. So how did those elements come into play with the writing process? And are those kinds of things that you've become more comfortable with over the years since Nile formed?
Yeah, I suppose uh, this time around, I think there's less extraneous elements overall. Like it's definitely a focus on the metal, uh, and having the female singers was kind of an outgrowth of that. Like I took my keyboard. I mean, it's out now again, but while we were working on that record, the whole time we were writing it, I fucking put it in the closet because I went, I'm tired of hearing overblown MIDI keyboard orchestrations on metal records because so many people do it and with varying degrees of success that I don't want to hear it. I want to hear some metal. So no keyboards. So there were a couple parts though that were like that might have ordinarily been done with a keyboard choir. That I went, well, wait a minute. Let's just get some real live humans to do this shit. And I went, well, if you're a band called Nile and you've got some backup singers, right? Who are they going to be? Right? So then I went, well, I want some ancient Egyptian Cleopatra looking chicks. That's who should be our backup singers. Yeah, we had four chicks, like if you'd see for anybody, like Stevie Wonder, right? Whatever. But they're wearing Cleopatra outfits. Yeah, that's who's our backup singers. All right, that's who I need. Well, you can't necessarily get that. But we're living in South Carolina. There's a shitload of gospel singers here. So, okay, gospel singers. Bring the gospel singers in. These women had no idea what they were getting involved in. They just knew it was like, a metal record. Okay. And they're there to pick up a paycheck, right? They're not here to participate in the metal. They're just picking up a paycheck. So, I got them to sing those parts. And I was like, this does sound better than keyboards. I like this. This is working. So while I had them here, I was like, any other keyboard part that I thought I might want to stick there, they're here right now. They got the gospel sound, and somehow it fucking works because the parts that I'm having them sing are modal kind of harmonies. They're stacked fourths, stacked fifths, very ancient sounding musical parts, right? And it was working. I was like, I like the sound of this. It's organic. It's unique. Nobody's ever done this on a death metal record. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, like it fits naturally on top of, the tracks that it's on, and then it's also it doesn't feel overdone, if that makes sense.
hmm Yeah, I didn't want too much of it. Just, they're there for specific musical reasons, right? This certain part needs to be done by somebody, right? It's a part that's there for a musical reason. So it's not there for superfluous reasons. They're for musical reasons. In other words, like we were saying earlier, they're not posing. They're not just strapping on Cleopatra outfits to be slapping on Cleopatra outfits. They're there for a specific purpose,
Yeah.
not posing.
Yeah, like it just feels like a natural part of the composition as opposed to being like extra window dressing on it.
hmm Yeah.
Yeah.
These songs otherwise I think are like really lean. There's not a lot of extra shit on there so that the edge, the impact is still direct. There's no cushions on it. It's not wearing pads, right? In martial arts class, you have to put on the pads, not just so you don't hurt the other person, but so you don't hurt yourself while you're doing your business. This album doesn't have padding on it,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, that's the thing that
Guitars,
sticks out the most to me. It's just very tight and focused.
mm-hmm, yep. And it achieves that, I think, by not having lots of extraneous elements that are padding.
Yeah, it's always kind of interesting to me, like the bands that can get away with having a certain amount of that in there, and then the bands where it feels like a gimmick more than just like
hmm
um being like a natural addition to their sound. Because for example, like with the Behemoth, like they have a lot of additional elements and things like that, but it never feels overblown because it's within what seems right for that band. And some bands don't, I think, get to a point where they lose sense of what is feels right for them within what
hmm
they've defined as their, I guess, sort of mission statement or whatever.
Well said, sir. I think you really hit the nail on the head with that.
But yeah, the thing that I was wondering too is with your writing process, has your Saurian trilogy of solo albums influenced the way that you approach writing Nile? Like I know it's an entirely different
Hmm.
sonic approach because it's more mellow, and I think you've described it as, music to trip to. But has that influenced the way that you approach Nile songs, and if so, like to what extent?
Well, uh, I think it does in uh, a specific way, and that's with the Saurian thing functioning as an outlet for quieter, calmer sounds. I those elements in Nile songs just because, right? If they're separated out a little bit, then Nile isn't trying to be the sum total of everything that I want to do. It's got its own brutal mission statement, which sometimes, the line gets a little blurry because I'm the same person, right? I'm me. I'm me if I'm playing in Nile, and I'm me if I'm writing Saurian stuff. So having a clean this music is does this thing, and this other music does this thing, and I'm not trying to make one single thing do both of those things. The purity of purpose, I think, can be a little clearer. Nile's a brutal band. If you stick too much non-brutal metal into a metal album, at some point it ceases to be a clearly defined metal record. It becomes an amalgamation of a lot of different things. And that's some sort of balancing thing that, you know, it's easier to manage achieving the balance if they're not confused, right? Quiet music, brutal music. Quiet music, brutal music. They got different purposes. So I wanted this Nile album to not be confused in any way. It's a fucking metal record.
How has it been, playing these tracks on tour so far? What's the, I guess, sort of set list been like, and what can fans expect on your upcoming US tour at the start of 2025?
Well, we are promoting the new record and we're having a blast playing the new songs. Um, because we're like anybody, after you play a song a couple hundred times, and some of the older Nile songs, we're talking in the, 1,000 plus times that song. How many times have we played Black Seeds of Vengeance? I Googled it once. And just all the ones that made it into Google were right at 900 times, documented times that we played that song at some show. That doesn't all count all the undocumented times. So, how many times can you play the same song like Stairway to Heaven or whatever, or Freebird by Leonard Skinner? How many times can you play that song before you really want to play some other song? Not that we don't love all our Nile songs, we do, but in order for us to have something to live for, that means writing some new songs and doing some new things. Uh, so it's a lot of fun to play new songs on tour. Stele of Vultures, uh, man. Strike with Secret Fang, so much fun. Chapter for Not Being Hung Upside Down, so much fun. We're adding Nakata into the Golden Age for this new tour. So it's just crazy amount of fun. Um, Even if we didn't smile once while playing these very brutal songs, it's still fun in the same way that when you smash somebody's face in a video game or in real life, certain animal brutal joy in it. That's the kind of fun I'm talking about. I'm not necessarily talking about the kind of fun where you're laughing and falling down because you did something so silly. I'm talking about the kind of fun where, you just smash somebody and it felt really good. Yeah. That kind of fun.
Yeah, and I think with the Egyptian theme to the band, what are, I guess, maybe some of your favorite mummy related movies or, Egyptian related movies?
Uh, you mentioned the mummy, and that always reminds me, for the longest time, I wanted nothing to do with the movie because it was, of course, a Hollywood, you know, raping of, inaccurate, Egyptian cliches, to make a movie, right? And I hated it. Didn't want to see it. But my kid at the time, he was probably about seven, eight, maybe nine. I don't know, somewhere in that period. He got uh, the DVD from one of his relatives, not in the immediate family. So he had the DVD of it. And he watched that thing like 50 fucking times. And after a while, he wanted me to watch it with him too. So I had to watch it yet another 50 times. And after a while, I went, wait a minute. This is stupid to be holding such a grudge, against the movie. The movie is obviously sheer entertainment. It's not a historical thing. Yet, these kind of movies, they fire the imaginations of young people. When I was a kid and I had seen the original 1933 Boris Karloff version of The Mummy, I loved it. It was fascinating, right? Uh, so their purpose really is entertainment, but also for expanding the mind. Like, how many people have become Egyptologists because they saw the Mummy movie when they were a kid? They grew up, took it a little more seriously, went to school, and learned, what stuff is really about. And then they went out, started digging in sand and finding stuff and adding to the expansive knowledge of human history. But it started with them watching a silly, pretentious Hollywood movie full of horrible abuses of history. So, wow, it has a purpose if you let it. So after a while, I was okay with the fucking Mummy movie. All right, I get it.
I kind of feel the same way about stuff like that because it's like, for example, there's people that'll complain about like a Marvel version of something like Thor or, I mean, I guess there's even Moon Knight where that's tied to Khonshu and
Right?
yeah.
I'm glad that by the time Moon Knight came out, I was already over it. So I could enjoy it and go, well, this is a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because I mean that is the kind of thing that serves as a gateway for kids to get into something, later on, like you were saying.
I remember having a similar epiphany. Um, I went to a show, metal show, because we were bored, with Wayne Hartzell, uh, drummer, one of the drummers from Morbid Angel in the Erie years while they lived up in Charlotte. And I happened to be up there visiting with them. And there was a David Lee Roth concert with, that was when they had Steve Vai. I think it was the Eat 'em and Smile tour. And it came through. And of course, you're a musician dude, right? Billy Sheehan, Steve Vai, How do you skip that over just because it's David Lee Roth? Okay, so that's why I was going. And Wayne Hartzell came with me, and we were there, and we were watching the show, and it occurred to me, all right, bands like Motley Crue, right, which is an anathema to a death metal person. Why do the metal gods allow such a blasphemy of posery that is a Motley Crue? Why? The gateway thing. All right, maybe someone that listens to Motley Crue or Guns N' Roses or whatever stumbles upon a Metallica or a Slayer. And from there, that's a gateway to an entire infinite universe of, metal. So that's its purpose. Without a Motley Crue to make fun of, where would we be as death metal people? This would be like God without Satan, or Satan without God, whichever way you want to look at it, right? Without a Motley Crue to make fun of, us metal people would have to make fun of somebody else.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like as much as a band like Ghost gets ragged on now, they're also a gateway to heavy music in the long term. Like when
Hmm.
they, for example, open on tour for Iron Maiden, I think it was back in like 2016, 2017, people who go to that show just to see them end up getting to see Iron Maiden as well.
Hmm.
That opens or expands their musical horizons. I mean, even when I was in like middle school, I think that was around the time that Slipknot broke through. That expanded my horizons to like blast beats and death metal vocals and things like that. And I was just
Hmm.
like, I want to hear more things that sound like this. And it was, oh, here's death metal, here's black metal.
Yep. So it serves a higher purpose.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the movie Bubba Ho-Tep?
No.
Oh,
Tell me about Bubba Ho-Tep.
so um, I don't know if this would be up your alley or not, but the movie stars Bruce Campbell as Elvis, but he's in a retirement home in Louisiana.
Oh
And the
my God,
premise
I love it already.
the premise of the movie is that Elvis never actually died. He signed an agreement that he was going to fake his death and have an impersonator take his place. And through a whole series of events, that contract gets destroyed after the impersonator overdoses on drugs, and Bruce Campbell's Elvis decides that he wants to go back to actually being Elvis again. But he can't because the contract's destroyed. So he ends up in this retirement home where it's in Louisiana, and some sort of like traveling mummy exhibit loses its mummy in the bayou, and the mummy begins terrorizing this retirement home
Oh my
and
God.
sucking old people's souls out of their asses. Um, and so Elvis has to stop this mummy from killing all of the people in the retirement home. And there's the mummy also, for whatever reason, ends up wearing like a Cajun hat. So he's a Bubba Hotep.
Wow. Dude,
And at
okay,
one
I got
point,
to see this movie. You've
yeah.
sold me. I got to see this. It sounds amazing and just full of good stuff.
There's a part where the mummy is just like uh cursing Elvis, and the hieroglyphs show up as subtitles, but then they get subtitled underneath, and it's just things like eat the dog dick of Anubis.
That's awesome. How have I not seen this movie?
I don't know, like it came out I think in like '03 or '04, but it was like a straight to DVD like B movie.
Okay.
Yeah, it's worth looking up if you want like a good laugh. Like it's the kind of humor that would be in like the Evil Dead and Army of Darkness kind of movies.
Okay. I love Bruce Campbell's all his movies, and anytime he's a cameo in anything, it's a great moment.
Yeah, I think that is actually all the questions that I had for today. But is there anything else that you want to put out there before we wrap things up? I don't want to take up too much of your afternoon.
Uh, the Underworld awaits us all.
Yeah. Now available on Spotify and other music outlets, or you can buy it the old-fashioned way from, I guess there's a Nile Bandcamp.
There
Is
is.
there
You
straight
can
from the
get it
Nile
on
merch store?
Amazon. Uh, there's all kind of places you can get. There's no excuse for not having it. It's like available to you. People will bring it to your fucking front door if you want.
I'm still just buying CDs all the time.
Right? Well, thank God, because CD buyers and vinyl buyers are the backbone of, what's left of bands being able to make music in the first place. So, God bless you, or Satan bless you. Like, I'm blessing you. Thank you. I love you. You rule.
And thanks for taking the time to chat today, Carl.
Well, thank you for having me, Roger.